Have you ever experienced working on a project when one thing goes wrong and then another?
This happened.
And then another?
Not the same instrument.
And soon the whole thing is falling apart and you're like, what the? Very few people know this until now, but making Intimate Cello was like that. Incredibly difficult. So now I'm going to tell you the true story of what happened and just what it took to finish a project where everything went wrong. I'm also going to take you for a ride. Not in a bad way, but since I'm spending the day to make this video, I really want to get out of the city. And that way you'll have some pretty Vietnamese scenery to look at. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Nikolai. I'm a former orchestra pro turned sample library developer. And I live here in Hanoi. I figured we'd start by driving up north of Hanoi. Near the airport there's a nice little lake with a nice coffee place. And since I haven't had my coffee yet... Whoa. Thanks, dickhead. That's where we're gonna start the story. And here we are. So it's not as peaceful as I'd hoped. There are two different outdoor karaoke things going on across the lake, which, if it was up to me, should be punishable by prison. Anyway, last year I released a solo viola library called Intimate Viola Iremia. And the idea was to make the most intimate solo string library I could by focusing only on very, very soft and quiet playing recorded very, very close. And it was a great success. It sold really well. Current economy considered, of course. So the next logical step was, of course, to make a cello library. Cello libraries are always popular, right? So I booked my friend Jung, who is a fabulous cellist, and the same studio where we recorded the viola, and we spent 2 days in the studio recording all the articulations that are also in the viola library, and everything went well until I began editing. So here I have the original session files with all 10 microphones level matched, because that's how they will be used in the final product. And this is where this project first starts to become derailed. Let's listen to a bit of silent room tone from day one. And let's hear a bit of silent room tone from day two. That's a lot of noise. It sounds like we recorded a wind machine, not a cello. If I play that again, you can see that the problem is the Telefunken M60s, which we used as farm mics at the very back of the room. We didn't catch it on the day because we had the farm mics quite low in the control room mix, but we now think that somehow, even though the studio is climate controlled, a bit of moisture got into the capsules overnight, and this is what that sounds like. No problem, I thought. There is a program called Isotope RX designed specifically to clean up problematic audio like this. And I spent thousands and thousands of hours in RX doing exactly that. And since I always make sure to capture a noise profile at the end of each session, I thought, surely I can clean this up in RX. No. And believe me, I tried. Here is RX, which uses a spectrogram view to view and edit audio. The brighter something is, the louder it is. So this would be the fundamental of a note, and up here we have all the harmonic content. And the dark areas here are basically silence. This is what it should look like. This is from one of the other microphones. And this is the same spot with the farm mics. See all these orange grainy stuff? That's our noise. And in here is the bits of the note that we want to keep. But it's just too much for the algorithm. It can't separate the two. And I try every trick in the book. I even try zooming in and cleaning up the space in between the harmonics by hand. I can get it fairly clean, but no matter what I do, I always end up with too many artifacts. It just doesn't sound good enough. I even invested in 2 more programs designed specifically to clean up problematic audio like this, but it was like trying to dig a hole with a bowling ball. Utterly hopeless. So at this point I only had two options. I could release the library without the farm mic, but then it wouldn't match the viola, and surely that would hurt sales. It would definitely make it much more difficult to convince anyone who bought the viola why they should also have the cello. So in the end there was only one real option. We're going to have to record day 2 again. So that's what I did. It took some waiting to get the studio and the cellist schedule aligned, but eventually we had a new day in the studio and we redid the whole day 2 session without any problems. No more broken mics. The studio owner, who is a good friend of mine, was kind enough to not charge me for the studio time, but of course I paid the cellist again because it wasn't her fault. Never mind, everything at this point is back on track, just a couple of months behind schedule. I'm being eaten by mosquitoes and deafened by karaoke, so let's go somewhere else. Okay, so we are going to Ba Vi. That's a national park southwest of Hanoi. There's a big mountain and it's very pretty. It's one of my favorite places to go when I have the time. I wish I could say it's a nice day, but I can't because it's crop burning season. So I'm driving through a haze here. I just hope it clears up when we get closer to the mountains. There are the mountains. That's where we're going. We do have to buy a ticket, Carmen. I've been told we can't go all the way to the top because Typhoon Yaki passed through here. And apparently there's been some road damage, but that's okay. I know a place at 800 meters that's quite pretty and interesting. I don't know how much of the view is getting onto the little camera I have on my chest, but trust me, if you come to Vietnam, you have to come here. This is the interesting part. Here we go. Look at that. So this is the church built by the Friends, and I believe it's been abandoned since the 1930s. Much better. There's no karaoke here. And then this happened. These are metal pins, and until recently they were inside my hand like that, inside the bone. You see, after we finished recording day 2 again, I broke my hand. 5th metacarpal, right hand pinky, right there. And to make matters worse, the fracture shifted, so I needed surgery. That's where they put these in. Needless to say, that slowed down work on the cello quite a lot. I'll buy one of these, a thumb-operated trackball, to see if I can keep working that way, but no. But after a month, the fracture was healed and I thought I could get back to work on the cello. Nope. This is what my hand looked like when the splint came off. Very red, very swollen, very, very painful. I sent this picture to the surgeon and this is what he said. Algodystrophy. It's also called complex retinal pain syndrome, and medical science doesn't really understand why it happens or exactly what's going on, but it is some sort of dysfunction of the nervous system in the hand. There is no cure or treatment as such, just time and physiotherapy to regain mobility, which I've been doing, and function is pretty much back to normal. It's been over 4 months now and the pain is mostly gone. There's just still a lot of swelling, a lot of stiffness, and it just feels weird. You know that feeling when one of your limbs fall asleep? It's kind of like a mix between that feeling and a feeling of it not being my finger. But I can play viola again, I can ride my motorcycle. Those are the two things that make me the happiest. And the doctor says that most people eventually recover, it just takes time. About 20% will have some stiffness for life, so I'm just hoping. But back to the cello library. So after all the trouble with the hand, I'm now about 4 months behind schedule, which wouldn't be so bad if this was just a hobby, but it's not. Bunker samples is my main source of income, so this library has to be good. Unfortunately, after I finish editing all these samples and programming them in Kontakt, I realized that it isn't. Listen to this. Hear that vibrato? It's not bad, but it's very wide and slow, and that doesn't really fit with the character of this library. And if you play a chord, which this library is supposed to be good at, it all sounds a bit wobbly and seasick. It's only the sustains that have this vibrato. The textures and swells are fine, but the sustains make up about a third of this library. It's just not up to the standard I have for myself and my products, and I just know that if I release it like this, it will hurt sales. Why did this happen? Well, it's 100% my fault. I remember in the session Jung asked me about the vibrato, and I just said, not too fast. I also remember sitting in the control room and thinking, I'm not sure this vibrato is going to work for sampling. But for some reason I just thought, nah, it will be fine. Well, it wasn't. Of course there's only one good solution to this, to record the sustains again. But that's going to add time and cost to a project that's already way over budget and way over schedule and is starting to drive me crazy. In the end, of course, I went for the expensive but correct decision and recorded the sustains again. So just to remind you, here are the original sustains. And here are the new ones. Much better, right? However, if you look at the cello that Jung was playing in the first session and then in the new session, yeah, it's not the same instrument. So much time has passed that he's playing on a new cello, so now I have a new problem. The sustains sound good now, but they don't sound the same as the rest of the library. So now I have to explain to potential buyers why the sustains sound different than the rest, and that's not a problem any developer wants to have. Of course, I was honest about it in the walkthrough video, but I think it did hurt sales a bit. And that sucks when all I was trying to do was make the best library I possibly could. So that's my story. And now it's getting dark, so it's time to get back to Hanoi. Hey buddy. Guys. This was supposed to be an easy project. After all, the idea and concept was fully developed and tested, the coding was done, the interface designed. All I had to do was record some samples, chuck them into Kontakt, and done. Well, that's not how it played out. In the end, about 85% was recorded twice, it cost more than double the budget, and it took me 5 months to finish instead of 1. But you know what? I'm okay with that, because I did the best I could and I learned a lot. Some practical things learned. Double check your equipment. Don't assume that everything is fine today just because it was fine yesterday, and trust your instincts. I could have fixed that vibrato in the session, but I didn't trust my instinct and it cost me a lot of time and money. And don't delay decisions. I agonized for weeks over whether or not to record again. I was like, oh, it's gonna go over budget and all that. Well, if you want to make something the best it can be, you already know what the right thing to do is. So don't waste time, just do it. But most of all, remember, when things start to go wrong, you can't control everything. Just fix the things you can, one at a time, and if you keep doing that, at some point you will run out of problems to fix. And then you will know that whatever you have created is the best that you can make it right now. And that's all that matters. And whatever you do, don't break your hand. It really sucks. But back to the cello library. Back to the what? Library? Library. I'm a sample library developer that can't pronounce sample library. That's not really ideal, is it?